Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Book Review Blog. I am your book reviewer, and today we're going to review the book Carrie by Stephen King. The actual full name of this book is Carrie, a novel of a girl with a frightening power. This is actually Stephen King's first book ever that he wrote and got widely published. He had written, just to give you a little background, he had written a few books or short stories that got sent to like men's magazines in like the 1970s and things like that. But he had, at the time, he was a school teacher in Maine, and he had been tinkering around with a little story about a girl with a special power. And he started to write a book, or started to write Carrie, and he just couldn't hack it. He thought, like, this isn't good, so he threw it away. Well, it ended up that his wife had found it, and the crumpled up paper that he threw away, and, smoothed it out and read it and said, I really think this is a good thing. I really think you have something going with this. Keep it up. And so he listened to his wife, which, you always should do, and started writing this story. This is, like, again, one of those books, if you're familiar with Stephen King or familiar with kind of pop culture type things, that you know what it's about. This is the, you think they keep talking about school bullying in school and violence in schools nowadays. This is a book that has both. This is probably one of the ultimate school bullying stories. You really feel for this Carrie. She is a 16-year-old girl at the beginning of it, and Carrie lives with her mother, Margaret, and just her and her mother, and her mother is a religious nut. I mean, that's just the icing on the cake. This woman is, I was trying to think as a comparison, with like a religious cult or a religious order that you could describe her as. I mean, this is absolutely nuts. She's, I guess, a revelationist, if you want to think of it. She always talks about end times and things like that. And that effect of Margaret on the town of Chamberlain, Maine, which is where they live, everyone in town knew of Margaret and just how whacked up and crazy she was. And unfortunately, that trickled down to Carrie, their feelings of Carrie. The adults really took pity on Carrie, like thinking, oh, this poor girl is with her mother and has to suffer through her. But the girls her age, growing up, even in elementary school, really started to pick on Carrie. And, I mean, and she was just she was a girl that, she was like a chubby girl, kind of, but she was the one that you thought of going through school going, this is the one that's going to get picked on. This is the one that is just a target. And, and unfortunately, Carrie is the big victim. She's like the victim of all victims, because in the beginning of the book, it starts with Carrie's a senior in high school, and even though she's 16, 17 years old, she gets her period for the first time. And this, for her, she is very, as for most girls, is kind of traumatic, but for most girls, they know what it is because their mothers have talked to them about this. This is going to happen, or they've heard about it. This is what's going to happen, this is what you do for it. But because of Margaret's religious craziness, she always put Carrie in that all of this was sinning, and she never told her about the menstruation. So Carrie realizes that she's bleeding and flips out. She's freaking because she's thinking she's dying. And the girls in the gym locker room they say, oh, Carrie, this is a natural life. This is what's going on. This is, it's fine. Let's help you out. No! They go ballistic. They take the tampons and the sanitary napkins and they throw it at her. They said, oh my gosh, this has happened. Let's go crazy. Let's really go nuts. And let's humiliate her more. And this is not led, but some of the girls that do this are a girl named Chris Hargensen, a girl named Sue Snell, a girl named Norma Watson is one of them, and several others. And they humiliate Carrie. I mean, this cannot be more of a humiliation to her at this point. Luckily, it is stopped by their gym teacher, Miss Desjardins, and she doesn't go along with the girls, but she's like, Carrie, what's your problem? Fix this, get over this, fix it. But then she realizes that Carrie doesn't know what's happening, and so she calms down and she tells Carrie to, she shows her what to do, says, clean yourself up and go home. So Carrie goes home, and later on, Miss Desjardins punishes the girls and says, that was awful of what you did. Do you not think Carrie has feelings? Do you not, I know what you guys do with her and to her. You can have, my thought of punishment for you was detention and loss of your prom tickets, because the prom is coming up. And they're freaking out, and they're like, don't worry, that's not what the school wants. They want you just to have a detention, but the detention is with me, and if you don't go with me, refusal of your prom tickets. And Chris Hargensen is one of those that says, I'm not doing this, I give up. And so Chris Hargensen now does not go to the prom. But one of the things that Carrie does is when she goes home, and her mother is there, and her mother gets a call from the school, alerting her, this is what happened with Carrie. And again, like the girls, her mother's like, oh, Carrie, it's okay. It's a passage of life. This is great. Yay, let's have a mother-daughter moment. No! She goes ballistic again and opens, this weird Bible and talks about, this is because of what Eve did, and Eve sinned, and now you have the sin of women, and now we've got to go nuts and continue to pray. And Carrie is freaking out again because she's like, why didn't you tell me this happened? And so Carrie and her mother makes Carrie go to a separate room in their house and pray. It's like a miniature chapel, and pray. And in the prayer in their room is a closet, and that's where Carrie does most of her praying. And her mother locks her in there for hours at a time. And Carrie's like, let me out. And finally, her mother lets her out, hours ago. And so that's kind of what that happens. And then things kind of progress. You see a lot of what happens with Carrie, and what happens with Sue Snell and Chris Hargensen. Sue feels very badly about what happened with Carrie, what she did. And so she, with great intention, she has good intentions with this, she asks her boyfriend, Tommy Ross, to take Carrie to the prom. Because she said, Carrie has had such a horrible life, and says, I really need to do something for her. I will ask my boyfriend to take her to the prom. And at first, Tommy rejects the idea and says, no, I don't think that's a good idea. But eventually he does. And he agrees to take Carrie to the prom. And she, again, reluctantly agrees. She's like, I don't want to do this. I know that you're going to try and trick me again. But she agrees to go with Tommy to the prom. What Chris does is she gets with her boyfriend, whose name is Billy Nolan, and says, we got to now get Carrie in a better way than we did with the period. We got to really humiliate her. And so what Chris and Billy and a couple of Billy's friends do is they go to a farm and they get pig's blood. And they're like, we got an idea. We got a thing. So, and all of this goes on, and again, Carrie and her mother are just kind of going along, and Carrie's mother's like, this is sinful. All of this is going to happen. And just like, again, being revelationary and just say, the end times are coming and all of that. Well, one of the things that Carrie realizes that when the incident with the period and with the tampon and sanitary napkins is that now something in her has broken. Something in her has, like, snapped. And she can now manipulate things with her mind. There was an incident in the bathroom while all this was going on that one of the bathroom lights had broken. There was an incident later on in the principal's office that she had moved an ashtray with her mind. And she had caused a couple things to go on, just like that. And now she's learning what it's about, and she realizes that she has the ability of telekinesis, which is the ability to move things with their mind. And so she's like, what she's doing is she's flexing, is what they're calling it. She's practicing moving things. Like, she'll move her brush, or she'll move, I think she moved a bed at some point, just really focusing on, this power that she has. And, so it's the night of the prom, and her mother is pleading with her not to go. And she's like, no, don't go, let's stay home and let's, pray. And Carrie really has it with her mother, and she said, no, I'm going, because Carrie's actually very excited about going to the prom, having this opportunity to interact with her class. And so, and she causes her telekinetic power to move her mother. Actually, she moves her on her bed, and she just moves her physically. And Margaret is like, oh my gosh, something is really wrong with my daughter. Something is just up. And so Carrie and Tommy leave for the prom, and Carrie starts to have a good time. She's kind of reluctant again because she's nervous about, will the kids laugh at her? What will they do to her? But she starts off by having actually a very good time. And Sue is not there, obviously, because she had Tommy take Carrie to the prom. One of the differences from the book to the movie is that Sue stays home. She doesn't eventually go, because in the movie it shows that Sue goes to the prom, but Sue stays home in the book, and she knows that something's up because she feels something like a premonition or something, but she doesn't go to the prom to check it out. Meanwhile, while Carrie and Tommy are at the prom, Chris and Billy are at the prom as well, but they're not dancing. They're held up in the, underneath the stage, because they had hooked up the bucket of pig's blood onto the stage. And of course, the famous thing of, and what's kind of joked about it, Carrie and Tommy are elected prom king and queen, which is really good for Carrie, and she's like, yay, this is good. But then, of course, the pig's blood happens, and it falls on her. And another major difference between the book and the movie is that in the book, Carrie runs out of the gym completely humiliated, and everybody is laughing. In the movie, in her mind, she sees people are laughing, but not all of them laugh. A lot of them are like, "What the heck?" But in the book, everybody is laughing at her, and so she runs out in humiliation. Now, unfortunately, it just kind of turns out that the pig's blood bucket falls on Tommy's head, and Tommy is like killed by that instant fall. So there goes Tommy. He's dead. And what happens is that Carrie turns back outside of the gym. She turns around and unleashes the power of her telekinetic ability, where she causes doors to close and keep closed. She causes the fire hoses to go on, and of course there's electricity because of the band playing, and I mean destruction everywhere. You know what happens basically. And she doesn't, in the movie it seems like she kills everybody in the hall. She doesn't. There are some that escape. She gets revenge on Chris and Billy. Chris and Billy are about the last people that she kills in the book, because even though in the movie they're one of the first. And then she goes home and deals with her mother. Now, when her mother is, as Carrie's at the prom, her mother is dead in her house, in her mind thinking, this is the devil's child. I've got to get rid of this child. Like, she claims, like, Abraham sacrificed Isaac. I gotta sacrifice this child to God, and so we gotta get rid of her. So Carrie goes home with the intention to kill her mother, and her mother stays at home with the intention to kill Carrie. This is great. And so they go home, and it's basically a showdown, and her mother doesn't die like she does in the book, or in the movie. Carrie stops her heart in the book. And Carrie goes out, but not before her mother dies. Her mother stabs her in the shoulder. Not a deep stab, but there was blood coming out. And Carrie then, after killing her mother, Carrie then leaves to go kill Chris and Billy. And as she's there, Sue finds her. And she basically dies. Carrie basically dies in Sue's arms. One of the differences between the movie and the book is, along with telling the story, which I've just explained, there are magazine articles, newspaper articles, and interviews that people did after the whole thing at the prom took place that explains what Carrie did, what telekinesis is, and reactions from surviving students. And Sue puts out a lot of stuff, because according to the book, Sue wrote a book. So that was it. I found it very exciting and very good. And to keep up with the trend of Halloween in October, I'm going to finish the Dark Tower series, number 7, which is entitled The Dark Tower. So that'll be the book that I'm going to read next. And I bid you all farewell and happy reading.